This is Micornus, Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. We are still dealing with the topic that speaks about what makes a dynamic pastor. What makes a dynamic pastor? And we continue with this as part 2 today. And I hope that you will learn a bit out of this as well as you have learned with the previous part 1. So, one thing that I want to emphasize, that if you want to be dynamic as a pastor, you need to be persistent and prevailing in prayers. You need to have what we call persistent prevailing prayers. So this is found in the book of James. If you look at it, I'm not going to read it right now, but the book of James, for reference sake, chapter 5, verse 16 to 18. Persistent and prevailing prayers are very, very important for any pastor that wants to be dynamic. And I want to emphasize the fact that prayer becomes therefore the backbone of the church. And if you are born again, washed by the blood, especially when you are a visionary called by God, you would know that prayer should be the center of your ministry. And if prayer is the center of your ministry, therefore, you will actually introduce it to your own members as a pastor and make sure that they understand the importance of prayer. And therefore, be persistent and make sure that they have what we call prevailing prayers. And they pray always according to the Bible. Now, this is very important because when prayer is not put at the center, there's no dynamism that will come in any church or in any individual. Now, as a pastor who's wanting to become dynamic and would love to be dynamic, prayers will actually do that for you, and you'll become a dynamic pastor actually because of prayers. Now, dynamic pastors pray and spend quality times in prayers. They close themselves up in their closet. They pray often, and they will you'll see some of them even walk up to the mountains and spend times praying. And some would actually spend times fasting and praying because they recognize the importance of prayer, because prayer is a communication between you and your Father. As a called pastor who's a visionary, somebody who is actually called by God, and as a visionary, you cannot be away from the one who called you. You cannot afford to disconnect with the one who called you. So therefore, prayer is that connection, that glue that keeps you and the one who called you together. And it keeps you closer and glued together. Very, very important. And I'm mentioning this because prayer has been ignored in many churches. But I want to emphasize that pastors that would love to be dynamic, you must understand you cannot be dynamic without prayer. So prayer becomes therefore the key and the backbone of every leader that want to be dynamic, that would love to run the ministry of God. Because prayer is a communication between you and the one who gave you the vision. So please don't be actually naive and think that you can communicate or continue connected with somebody who called you while you cannot communicate with them. And this is a very, very important statement to utter. Now, people that are prayerful and they want to be dynamic, they harness the power of prayers to help their work, because they make sure that they even coordinate prayers in their own churches. They coordinate prayers with their own people, and the church that they lead will have what we call prayer meetings times, fasting times together as a church as well. And the pastor will harness that and make sure that it works. And every single thing that they touch and do, they pray about it. They pray for it. And they make sure that God gets involved in the work that they are doing and the ministry that they continue doing. This is very important that we emphasize that as well. Now, through intensive prayers, people that are dynamic, pastors that want to be dynamic, they draw down the hand of God fully into the work. Because when you pray, you're calling God to your midst. When you pray, you're making God to be involved in what you're doing. Very, very important, therefore, that prayer cannot be emphasized enough here, because prayer is very, very key and very important. It is, of course, the backbone of ministry. And everybody who is a pastor and want to be dynamic, prayer must be the primary instrument that they use in their lives. Dynamic pastors, they are not too busy to pray. They make sure that they make time, set time aside and pray, because sometimes you can get lost in the busyness of this world. and we get busy with engagement of things of God, do the work of God, and forgetting to pray. And sometimes we are so engaged with secular jobs as well, and we are so engaged with our own lives. And of course, these days, you would agree with me that we get so involved with social media, and we actually get engaged with a lot of things and forget to pray. But if we want to be dynamic pastors, prayer must be primary in our churches. Very, very important. They are not too busy to pray, those that are actually dynamic, those that are leading dynamic churches. Rather, they take time to pray and plan their time around their prayer life. So everything else will actually, prayer life will be like in the program, forefront of the program, number one in the program, and everything else will actually be planned around the prayer time. So in other words, everything will fit around the prayer times. So very, very important that we emphasize that as well. So we have seen this happening, that people get lost with activities and work and so forth, and then they forget really to plan their lives around prayer. So God uses people who are prayerful. God uses people that communicate with Him. And therefore, as a pastor who want to be dynamic, please allow yourself to be used of God. I want to also mention that people, or pastors that want to be dynamic, they've got a vision and they've got focus as well. And I want to emphasize this, says that if you want to be a dynamic pastor, please make sure that your vision is clear. You know exactly what you're called for. Be very, very careful of that, because if you are not called, you're going to struggle actually to continue, because if you don't have a vision, you'll have no direction. Because direction is shaped up by a vision. And understanding of a vision and clarity of the vision, it actually makes somebody to walk towards the vision. And people like that then become dynamic because they are able to focus and become persistent as well. The book of Acts chapter 26, verse 18 and 19. Acts chapter 26, verse 18 and 19, you can read it at your own time. It emphasizes the issue of a vision and being focused as well, because it's very important that dynamic pastors receive their vision from the Lord, and they are pursuing it as well vigorously to make sure that it's consistent, it's vigorous, and they drive it to make sure that it gets fulfilled. So you cannot actually have your own vision crafted by yourself without God being involved. Vision must be given by God. And if it's given by God, therefore, you must be able to be driven to pursue it. You must have energy to pursue it vigorously to make sure that it happens. And the people that are dynamic like that, then you find them, they renew their vision and they are focused on making the vision a reality. Because without making the vision a reality, or practical rather, you'll not actually have an energy to continue with it. Without breaking it down into small pieces, doable activities, it will not actually be pursued properly. Now, if you are running a church with a vision and you are going to get the members to follow, break the vision into small chunks of activities. So please make what you call year planners in advance, whereby people can know that we're doing this activity maybe every month, or this month, and next month another activity. Or also you could actually break it down in quarters as well. This quarter, this is what we are doing towards this vision, and therefore it must be doable activities. And I'm emphasizing that because it's very important for us to understand that you need to break it down into doable activities. That's the only way you're going to make it work. So I'm emphasizing that focus is very important, vision is very important, but the vision must be made a reality. Now, refuse to be distracted or seduced by other interests as well. Because remember, when you're chasing a vision, the devil will always bring other things to distract you. And so that is why you find people that are not focused with their vision. They are actually driven or drawn to do other activities that may not be important at the moment. And they find themselves engaged in that. And sometimes people lose focus because of looking at what others are doing and start wanting to do what other people are doing. But I want to emphasize the fact that a vision is not determined by what other people are doing, because you've got your own vision that God has inspired in you. And if God has instilled this vision in you, you must pursue your own vision with direction and with clarity. And don't be distracted and be driven to look at another direction while you are actually called for a particular area of your life. This is very important. And I must emphasize that vision without focus cannot be accomplished. And that is why many people lose it out, because they've got visions and along the way they are consumed by other activities of life. Some people that have got vision to run of the church get engaged sometimes in businesses, and they get lost in the bush of or the forest of businesses and forget that they've got a vision of God that God has put upon them. And I'm sure you've seen many pastors that have got consumed into businesses, and I've seen some that have been consumed into politics as well, whereby while they're running a church and they are leading the church of God with a vision of God, yes, they get interested in politics, and therefore they get deviated by that, and they start actually focusing on politics and ignore the initial calling that God called them to be. Now, I want to emphasize this because it's very important for us to understand this at this point, that there are those amongst us that are called maybe in politics, and that could be your vision. That could be where you need to focus on. I'm speaking about somebody who has told us that you've been called by God to lead this particular vision that is church-related. While you're running a vision that is church-related, you get consumed into politics, and you find yourself now running politics, running for power, running for money, and forgetting that God has called you for something else, which is actually the vision of running the church. And I'm emphasizing this because we have seen this happening as well. I want to end up here today, your host, Micornus, Phokane, leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. And I want to make you aware that we've got Facebook page, Micornus Phokane, and Church Governance Solutions as well. So make sure that you like those pages. Make sure that you also click notification buttons so that you may be made aware when we've posted materials going forward. Remember, we've got a YouTube channel as well, Micornus Phokane. Make sure that you subscribe to that YouTube channel. Make sure that you are also clicking notification button there as well, so that you may be notified. Remember, we've got a lot of materials that we have posted in the past, and I would love you to also follow that in the YouTube and make sure that you look at the materials that we have posted. Some are very relevant to your own church and specific church. Choose those that are relevant to your own church and make sure that you listen to those. And I want to end up here right now. And please join us tomorrow as we deal with part 3 of this great topic. May the good Lord bless you. Allow me to check out and say cheers for now.